Hey guys, Mrs.Slack here. So, what is something that every single living thing needs to do? What is something that every organism, from birds to us to a worm, needs to survive? It's food, right? Everybody wants to eat. And today we're going to be discussing food chains, starting with autotrophs. So what do you think an autotroph is? This is an autotroph. This is an autotroph. This is an autotroph. This is an autotroph. That's an autotroph. And this is an autotroph. So an autotroph is anything that can create its own food by using one thing. The sun. Alright, so the sun is a ball of energy. That energy can be used by plants to create their own food. So why can't all animals do that? Well, we just aren't designed that way. So the plants, or autotrophs, are first on every single food chain throughout. And the rest are all called heterotrophs, which means that they eat other organisms to get their energy, like us. Alright, so like we were saying, heterotrophs have to eat other organisms. Those other organisms usually start with things that are autotrophs. So we're going to feed our first heterotroph. Now these guys, I'm going to flip you around, called dubia roaches. So they're going to be our heterotroph. We also got, these dubia roaches are from Asia. And then we got some banded crickets. So both these animals would not be native to our next species in the food chain, but in captivity it's the closest thing we got to small heterotroph insects. So our next animal on the food chain has very hard scales, cone-like teeth, and a very voracious appetite. That is the bearded dragon. So the bearded dragon, who is native to Australia, is next on our food chain. He will eat our small heterotrophs. In the wild, they actually also will eat autotrophs as well. They're actually an omnivore. But for the sake of our food chain, we only look at one thing that they're going to be eating. And for us, it's going to be our little tiny heterotrophs. So let's see it in action. Wild, the next on the food chain would actually be a Woma python. Now, a Woma python I do not own. You can own them. They are a really long, beautiful, stretched snake with yellow and black markings. Some of them have a full black head, and they would actually eat Mr. Phoenix here. So, like I said, I don't have that, but that would be who's next on our food chain. A species of snake would eat my poor Mr. Phoenix. Right, buddy? Alright guys, so our last animal is the apex predator. That is the animal that is the top of the food chain. It's the one that nobody messes with. It has ears that are pointed, has fangs, and it comes in all brown. The dingo. Now, Aldo is not a dingo. He is an Australian cattle dog. Aldo, sit. Which is actually a combination of Australian shepherds and dingoes. So he's as close as we got to a live version. But in the wild, he would eat our poor little Woma python and our little bearded dragon. Wouldn't you, boy? Let's look at another food chain since we finished our first. So let's start with our autotroph, a piece of fruit. Now if you leave a piece of fruit out, what shows up? Think really hard. Yeah, Yeah, so if you guessed fruit flies, then you are correct. Fruit flies are all over the world, and there's different species of fruit flies, but we're not going to get into that. But today, our heterotroph is going to be of fruit flies. Now in here, I'm not sure if the camera can even see them, are a bunch of little fruit flies. And these fruit flies will be eating our fruit. So we got our autotroph, which is fruit. We got the fruit fly, which is our first heterotroph. Our second heterotroph is going to be an animal that comes from the Amazon rainforest. They are striking in color and are poisonous. Do you have any guesses? If you guessed a poison dart frog, you would be correct. So this is our next heterotroph, a poison dart frog. So we got 3 of them in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and give them some of our flies. So in here we have an Azurus, which is the blue one, and a Leucomelis, that is the yellow and black. They're both from the Amazon rainforest, and as you can see, they love their fruit flies. So the next predator that would eat these guys is actually a species of snake. There's only one animal that can eat them, and that is the fire-bellied snake, because these frogs in the wild are very poisonous. So the poison is so toxic that the fire-bellied snake is the only one who's developed any kind of way to defeat this poison. Now in captivity, these guys are not poisonous because they get their poison from ants in the wild. And here, they don't get to eat those ants. They instead eat fruit flies, which do not have poison, making them relatively harmless. Alright, just for the sake of repetition, let's do one more, alright? Now this one, I don't have the animals in order of the same area, but we can at least get the same concept, right? So, as usual, we start with our autotroph. Now, the autotroph obviously isn't going to be like the noodles, but it's going to be the little seeds. These seeds are going to be eaten by a heterotroph that most people are very familiar with. That heterotroph is going to be some mice. Now, as you can see, these guys are not alive. These are what are going to be fed to the snakes. These are shipped to me frozen, so these are actually still very frozen. So see, no animals were harmed here on this video. So as you might already have guessed, our next animal is gonna be a snake. And I'm gonna have 2 different species of snakes eating these mice today. And typically the snakes are not gonna be the apex predator. The apex predator would be things like hawks. Hawks or bigger snakes or bigger lizards, but typically a hawk is going to be our apex predator in this environment. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and feed our snakes now those mice. Now if you don't want to watch, that's okay, you can fast forward, but we're going to go ahead and show this. There's not going to be blood or guts or anything, they will swallow them whole. Alright, let's get started. So we're going to start with a ball python. She'll take it right away. So we're gonna look at our food chains again. So all of them, we started with the sun, right? So what we're gonna do is we point an arrow where the energy is gonna go. So we point an arrow. So our first food chain, we had lettuce, all right? So we had a piece of lettuce. This piece of lettuce was our first autotroph, and the arrow points towards the lettuce. To the lettuce, we fed it to our poor little cricket. Or our roaches, right? So it was our first heterotroph. So the arrow points to where the energy went. So the energy from the lettuce went to the roach or cricket, right? After that, it went to our bearded dragon, right? So, our little bearded dragon. I know I'm not the best artist, but that's fine. You get the idea. Alright, after our bearded dragon, we have our arrow. So the energy from the sun went to our autotroph. The energy from our autotroph went to the roach. The energy from the roach went to the lizard. The energy from the lizard went to the Woma python. I know, not the best drawing. And the energy from the Woma python went to our dingo. As our apex predator. So we have the sun, goes to our autotroph, which was the piece of lettuce, who goes to the roach, who was our first heterotroph, who then goes to the bearded dragon, who then went to the snake, who then went to the dingo, who was our apex predator. Apex predator, right? In our second example, again, we will have the sun, right? The sun gave its energy to our strawberry or fruit, right? Not the best strawberry. The strawberry gave its energy to our fruit fly, which was our first heterotroph, right? Because the strawberry was our autotroph, who then gave its energy to our dart frog, right? Not a very good frog. And then our dart frog gave its energy to the fire-bellied snake, right? Which was, in this food chain, was our apex, right? Let's do our last one. Our last one, again, we always start with the sun. The sun gives energy to everything. So we'd start with the sun, who gave energy to our sunflower seed, right? The sunflower seed, which was our autotroph, right, gave its energy to the mouse. Right? And then the mouse gave its energy to my snakes. So again, for all food chains, we're going to start with the sun. After the sun, you're always going to have an autotroph. That could be phytoplankton, that could be fruit, that could be seeds, that could be lettuce or grasses, right? And after that autotroph, we move on to heterotrophs. So snake, the dingo, the fruit fly, the frog, the mouse, all of those are heterotrophs. And the arrows are always pointing to where the energy is going to go. Alright? So go ahead, work on the assignments that are due today on food chains, and good luck, and feel free to ask any questions at the end. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Miss Slack. What we're going to be trying to talk about is food webs. So just like last time we talked about food chains, right? It goes in a linear order, meaning that there's one, so we start with grass, and then grass gives energy to the rabbit, then the rabbit gives energy to the snake, and the snake gives energy to the hawk. But in reality, food chains are a lot more complicated than that. So we're gonna go ahead and create a food web. Now, of course, I don't have enough live animals to really do that, but we're gonna go ahead and do it with some plastic replicas. Alright, so just like the food chain, normally we would start with the sun. Obviously, I don't have a plastic sun, so we're just gonna leave the sun out, but keep that in mind. Normally we would start with the sun. So we're gonna start with some grass. Alright, so this will be our one autotroph. Normally you can't have more than one autotroph or one plant in a food web because obviously environments are much more complicated than that. But for time's sake, we're only going to use one. And we're going to look at an African replication of a food web, alright? So first we start with our grass. And now we need to show where the energy for grass goes. So we have a baboon, a kudu, of course they're all falling, a little ostrich, a meerkat, a tortoise, an oryx, a Thompson gazelle, an okapi, a springbok, and a giraffe. So all these animals all eat grass. So an arrow from the grass is going to go to each animal. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and draw those with the marker. So remember, the arrow points to where the energy is going. So the energy is going to the animals, right? Alright, so let's add a carnivore. So we have the lion, right? So the lion can eat every single one of these animals. So we're gonna add an arrow to every single one of these animals. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Alright, so we also have a little cheetah, right? So the cheetah is not as aggressive as the lion, so it wouldn't be as possible for it to take down as many things. So the cheetah could take down the Thompson gazelle and the springbok and the kudu. Alright? So we'll draw little arrows. Alright, so this one, the energy goes towards the animal it's going to. Alright? But for a small cheetah, a lion would actually eat a cheetah too. So we're going to add this line, and it would go to the cheetah. So let's add another predator, a leopard. So leopards will go for pretty much everything a lion would. I hope I'm not going to run out of tape. But it could eat the gazelle, the okapi. It wouldn't be able to take down the giraffe. Oh, there's my tape. Alright, so we'll leave it at that. He's going to only eat 3 things today. this is our food web, right? So with the food web, you can see everything is interconnected. Every animal feeds somebody. So what happens if we remove, let's say, the gazelle, right? We remove one of the gazelles. That means that the leopard lost a food source. The lion lost a food source. I'm not going to be able to fully get it off, but who else? The lion lost it, and the cheetah lost a food source. Now, for the lion, he still has lots of food, right? So he can just switch and start eating some of the other species. For the leopard, now the leopard only has two species to feed from. That means it's gonna be more likely that it won't find food. And the cheetah now only has one food source. So it might eat that one food source to where that food source then disappears. So removing one thing from the food chain can have a huge impact. And this is not even a complicated food chain. You see how it's already getting so webby. Food webs actually get very, very complicated. But this is a way that you can see what happens if something happens to one of the species. So for example, if we go hunt and overhunt and kill all the gazelles, the predators will be affected. To understand food webs so you can understand how something's going to affect the environment. Like removing mosquitoes. We might not want mosquitoes or like mosquitoes, but if we can remove them, what other animals is that going to affect? So everything is interrelated and interwoven. Nothing happens without affecting another species. So keep that in mind. Food webs, food chains. Food web is just a bunch of food chains put together. Well, a food web shows all of our interactions, all right? So good luck. I hope you understood and have a good day.